It's the intel about the next generation of Bulldogs. This is Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger.
Let's go, I'm a Bulldog.
Welcome in, DawgNation. I am Kaylee Mansell with DawgNation recruiting insider Jeff Sentell, who even after all this time is still jamming out to the music.
Still, I mean, you got it's like 2027, Kaylee. We got a whole new class. We got a whole new name of prospects, whole new bag of prospects to track. Can't wait to get started.
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while now, but there's still no better way to start out the show than talking about a new commit. And believe it or not, it's another 2026. It's the three-star wide receiver Dallas Dickerson, who went to North Oconee High School. 6'1", 185 pounds. He was the number 64 wide receiver in the class of 2026. Once a Kentucky commit, now a Dog. I would ask why this is a good fit, Jeff, but I think the speed on the bottom speaks for itself.
Kaylee, that's fast. That immediately vaults him into one of the 5'10" fastest players on the Georgia team, and Georgia has a lot of burners. So much to the effect, Kaylee, that you got a physical wide receiver, so much to the effect that some might even probably, very accurately wonder, could Dallas Dickerson be a safety perhaps at Georgia, because he can run, very straight line fast, very physical football player. He's going to be an asset in the perimeter blocking game, and he kind of became a Georgia Bulldog through the road not taken, one of those everything happens for a reason stories.
Yeah, because, when you think about it, North Oconee, not that far outside of Athens, but was a Kentucky committed to Georgia over the weekend. So was Georgia involved in his recruitment process throughout high school, or is it really just a byproduct of other circumstances that got Dallas Dickerson to be a Dog?
Yeah, first of all, Georgia was well aware. They knew about that 100 time. He visited a lot. I think this is one of those dominoes story, Kaylee, and what I mean by this is a domino story because of the coaching dominoes. Kentucky gets a new staff. The new staff releases Dallas Dickerson from their scholarship. Apparently, he didn't fit the mold. Apparently, 10.36 wide receivers that are physical is not what they're looking for right now. Big Blue Nation. He becomes available. And then another circumstantial thing happens, Kaylee, because Georgia was taking 3 high school wide receivers. Brady Marchese, he flips late at the 11th hour to Auburn. Georgia had kind of budgeted that they were going to have 3 high school wideouts in this class. And, Marchese, the comparison between Marchese and Dickerson, it's not similar. They're sort of the same type players, both very fast, both very physical. I think Marchese has a little bit more route polish. He has a little bit more kind of twitchiness to him right there. But for Georgia to find a player like this late in the recruiting cycle, I think that's a pretty good win. And now, obviously, there's a lot of reasons how Georgia is going to be able to use another player like Dickerson as well.
Yeah, and there's an extra added layer when it comes to Dallas, because he now becomes one of 4 North Oconee players to be on this Georgia roster, which is actually something that we're going to talk about later on, the relationships and connections within this 2026 Georgia team. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the storyline we're going to hear so much about over the coming days, and that's Indiana and the way they've gone about building their roster this year. And is that the new standard for college football? And how can Georgia take away a lesson from how Indiana has managed to do it? Then we're going to have a DawgNation conversation with 2027 linebacker target Joakim Gouda. He's going to share something that I think is really refreshing for not just Georgia fans to hear, but all of college football fans as well. Then Sentell's mail returns with a question about a 2028 prospect who had a viral play over the summer. We'll show you the question and we'll show you the play. Then, as always, it's the 2027 class breakdown, and we'll also talk about some of the juniors from the targets that are going to be visiting Athens this weekend. But I feel like we have to start with Indiana, who has been the story of this college football season. I think Fernando Mendoza said it best. They are a team of misfits, and they've dominated pretty much all of the games that they've played in, with the exception of a few. The story itself is unbelievable, but the way they have built their roster has completely gone against every recruiting principle we've been familiar with since the beginning of college football.
So, Kaylee, a lot of people look at this, and it's a copycat world. Everybody's going to sit there and say, hey, how can we do what Indiana did? And I think Indiana has kind of 3 layers of a perfect storm here. First of all, I'm gonna call to mind a term called grown man strength or old man strength. And what we have college football, right? And it is a violent, brutal sport. So when it comes to being physical, does the 23-year-old college football player, does he have an edge over the 20-year-old college football player? I say yes. I get on the table and I would pound it and I'd say yes for a couple of reasons. Number one, 20-year-old might be more talented, but you've got a situation in Indiana where you're going to drop some stats on some people, so make sure you guys pay and listen closely to this. But what they're doing, I think, is they're getting experienced players. Those are the ones that came over with Signetti from James Madison. And they're turning some of those James Madison 2-star, 3-star players into like second-team All-Big Ten, third-team All-Big Ten players. Because they're doing it because, yeah, they're more experienced, they're older. But the other thing, Kaylee, that I think a lot of people get lost on is I think they've banked a lot of reps in the Indiana schemes. And what I mean by that is they were there, they've been repping it, they've been drilling it for 2 or 3 years at James Madison, then comes over to Indiana, and they're having a lot of success because not only are they experienced, but they're also experienced in the same system.
Well, as you mentioned, and I'm sure you guys have heard it already, the average age of the team is 23 in comparison to someone like the Green Bay Packers, whose average age is 25 or 26. But we dug just a little bit deeper to look into Indiana by the numbers. 14 of their 22 starters are transfers. When you look at 2025 specifically, they placed 25th in the transfer rankings. They placed 49th in the recruiting rankings and brought in 23 players, both from the transfer portal and also from high school. And then going back to 2024, 30th in the transfer ranking, 66th in the recruiting rankings. Also, no 5 stars on this team, but even just seeing it laid out in front of you like this, there's not really anything that jumps off the page advantage-wise. Clearly, they have a really good quarterback, and you pointed to things like the age, the experience, also the coaching. But is there anything kind of behind these numbers that gives them a further advantage and has allowed them to dominate teams, specifically in the playoffs?
So the first thing, Kaylee, Indiana's a great story. Nobody loves a great story as much as I do, but let's kind of keep it real here a little bit. They haven't walked on water the whole season. They were vulnerable against Penn State. Others Big Ten schools, they just didn't boat race everybody like they've done to Alabama and Oregon. I think there's 2 things here, another 2 layers to this for me. Number one is I don't know if the recruiting industry knows how to rank transfer portal players, especially from James Madison. I can assure you, Kaylee, none of those boys that transferred from James Madison to Indiana were really seen by any of those national recruiting analysts. So they don't know, what does a 2-year starter at JMU mean when he transfers to Indiana, and that was basically their only option. So that's the one thing. The second thing, and I continue to use the word multiplier. Kaylee, they spent about $2 to $3 million on Fernando Mendoza, and that is an NFL first-round future starting quarterback. And what they've done, the difference between Indiana in 2024 and Indiana in 2025 is Mendoza. He made the big throws to beat Ohio State. He made the big throws in the tight windows, and then he made the big throws, obviously, to make Alabama and Oregon look really silly. Now, when you have that gumbo of really good players, they're coached up, they're a little bit older, and then you have a guy like him that's the ringleader at all that and the trigger man of all that, those misfits start making memories.
Yeah, but when you look at recent years, this isn't the first time that we've seen a team be successful getting quality guys out of the portal, but I feel like the difference is in the past, it's been a mix of getting guys in the portal, but also still prioritizing guys at the high school level as well. I think about Ohio State last year. You can even make the case for Ole Miss last year and this year as well. But, this is a team that's primarily been put together all through the portal. So moving forward, is their story enough to change the foundation of how teams will proceed to build their rosters in the future?
Kaylee, I need to see one more season. And this year, this offseason is going to show it to me. And I'm not talking about on field. I'm talking about on the trail. And let's face it, Indiana is now a name. It's a property. And people are going to go, they're going to have expectations. They're going to have everybody telling them how great they are. And they're going to get those top 100 players now. I'm going to look to Indiana and say, okay, you still going to build your teams like that? Or are you going to take that 5-star from South Bend, who normally every year goes to Notre Dame? Are you going to pull that guy out of Linfield, Ohio, because you can get that guy now when you had no shot at that before? Indiana is now a name brand, and I'll be curious to see if this Signetti way, which is the only way they could build it, if they have the option to do it differently, what they will do given those circumstances.
Well, as you alluded to, the obvious rebuttal of this method is that it's not sustainable, and you pointed to a lot of the reasons why, but who's not to say that they can't just do this year in and year out?
Well, I think that's going to be very hard to do because, sooner or later, you're not going to have these backlog of guys that had 3 or 4 years in the system. And I don't think the JMU players will be as welcomed coming in or getting those guys from the FCS level or the lower levels, the non-power 4 levels of college football. Kaylee, what I do here is I kind of look at it with what's happening now with Georgia fans and Georgia's roster construction here, because you have Georgia. And you can point to no greater example than the 2023 recruiting class. Those should have been the old men on the field for Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And I believe there's only 7 left from that class. And I think what you want to do, the best of both worlds to me, is you get those talented guys, those 12 top 100 recruits, and you keep them there for 3 years. And then you're going to have a benefit there where you have the talented guys who have banked all those reps in the system. And then they're also just playing faster. They're not having as many mistakes and as many busts. I think that's what you want to achieve when you're trying to look for the ideal way to build the team in the NIL transfer portal era.
Yeah, well, currently right now in the portal, Georgia's already taken 7 guys this far, mostly secondary players and some skill players on top of that. I mean, is there anything left that Georgia can do in the portal to enhance what is already there?
I think slim pickings, really, Kaylee. Lots of fans ask me the question. I think it's a valid question. Why isn't Georgia doing more on the offensive side? Because you can bet your bottom dollar they're trying to fix that leaky faucet at safety because they threw players at that portal players at that problem last year, and they're definitely doing it again this year, not just with the transfer portal and some quality guys coming in, Gentry Williams, Khalil Barnes, Jamarlee Ridley, all those guys. But you're also bringing in a slew of really talented high school players that can play safety, that can play that back end. So Georgia's addressing all that. I think the most important part for Georgia fans is when the transfer portal window finally closes a little bit, it's going to be a sigh of relief for who Georgia kept out of the portal more so than who else can they get. Now, the one kind of damning thing that I hear from fans is why not more help on offense? Because you've lost Colby Young, you've lost Noah Thomas, you've lost Dylan Bell, you've lost a lot of guys that were going to help you on the offensive side of the ball, and you've really only brought in one running back in Dante Dowdell, who's basically a straight line replacement for Josh McCray. So, like, what they're trying to do there is they're trying to find a way to – Georgia, I think, needed a little bit more firepower offensively. But what it says to me, Kaylee, they're not targeting edges. They're not targeting wide receivers. That tells me that they feel good about the guys already in the program, especially that 2025 class of receivers that they believe, the C.J. Wileys, the Black Shears, the Tyler J. Williams, the Talon Taylors, and Landon Roldans. They believe it's now their time.
Okay, so then from your perspective, how would you grade what Georgia's done in the portal this far?
I think they've addressed a lot of needs, especially the safety needs, because I think they're going to have more football players there. Kaylee, one surprise for me is I thought they pulled the former 5-star defensive lineman Amaris Williams away from Auburn out of the portal. Kaylee, you're not normally expected to see that high caliber of a defensive line player go into the portal. That young man's from North Carolina. He chose Auburn. Some of the comments he's made over the last month was that he wished that he would have given Georgia a harder look. And Kaylee, what you've done right now is Amaris Williams is basically, he wasn't a 5-star at Auburn. I believe he had 2 sacks last year. But what he is, Kirby took the sting of the Ole Miss loss pretty hard because he didn't have a Gabe Harris type player that would have helped him a lot in that Sugar Bowl. So what he's done is he's found another player quite like Gabe Harris to make sure the team gets a little bit more depth in a key area like that.
Yeah, and I would also make a similar comparison between somebody like Isaiah Canyon, the wide receiver they got from Georgia Tech, to like a C.J. Wiley. They like what they have in Wiley, but they need somebody to complement him and also add depth to that specific position. So we've still got 2 more days left of the portal, still time for moves to be made. Just a few more days after that till we get to watch Indiana play in the national championship. But something we're going to do here in a minute is discuss something that the Indiana model can't replicate, and I think it's one of the more unique things that we already can recognize about Georgia's 2026 team. So we'll do that in just a minute, and we'll also have an exclusive interview with a 2027 target that will appear on our top targets later on. But first, we want to remind you that here on Before the Hedges, we are brought to you by Kroger. This is a really good time to start looking into Kroger Boost if you haven't already. It's cold outside. A lot of people are sick. Maybe your kids are back in school and life is just a little bit more chaotic than it was in the holidays. And one thing that you can do to just make your life a little bit easier is have those groceries delivered straight to your doorstep. It's a really good cost for what you get in return. And the process is very, very simple of ordering ordering your groceries. On top of that, you also get 2 times the fuel points. So if you haven't already, this is your sign to look up Kroger.com/boost to either learn more or sign up today. So you told me something really, really interesting the other day. I felt like it was important that we talked about something like this because one of the things we always reference is the culture at Georgia, being a culture fit. And I feel like the connection between this year's team is just going to add to that culture that we already discussed. You told me something the other day that immediately stood out about the roster. Could you repeat that stat for everyone else?
Yeah, sure, certainly. First of all, backstory here, Georgia has 4 kind of character traits of their program. DNA traits is what Coach Smart calls them. Composure, resiliency, toughness. The last one is connection. Georgia, whether it's through happenstance or inadvertently, they have cultivated connection in this 2026 team. And here's what I mean by that. Kaylee, January is the month where they bring in all these transfer portal signees. It's also the month where all the mid-year high school signees report. You know, we love those videos every year, which shows them moving into ECV. Those were all over social media this week. Kaylee, Georgia has added 14 new players to the team this month that can say, I have a former high school teammate in Athens that I'm going to get to play with. And that now jumps the team total to 31. Kaylee, mind you, there's the new SEC expands the rosters from 85 to 105. Now, that includes your walk-ons now and the grandfathered walk-ons as well. But, like, when you have almost 30% of the roster that can say, that was my former high school teammate that I'm going to be playing with at Georgia in the same locker room, I think you're pre-wiring connectivity. I think you're building camaraderie, chemistry. You know, one of the things, Kaylee, that we got to talk about in this topic is any level of football, when it's working, when the team building is working, when they're gelling, they say that guy's my brother. We're building a brotherhood along the position group, the offensive line, the defensive line, the secondary, whatever. The other thing about Georgia now is they have, you know, for even more connection, they have 2 sets of brothers on this team. Mm-hmm. One of those, Lawson Lucky, Carter Lucky. Both of those guys went to the high school in Norcross. The other one is Nnamdi and Ekene Ogboko. We were there, shout out South Gardner High School, when Ekene committed to the University of Georgia. So you've got that kind of swirling about right here, right? And I think that's going to help because, Kaylee, it's hard to keep a team together. It's hard to kind of put those natural anchors in there to keep a guy plugged in and chopping wood to get better at Georgia. When the overlying pull, the overlying tractor beam is not a huge financial windfall. So what Georgia's doing, and I don't know whether it's they're aiming to do so or as well as this is just a neat little wrinkle, but they're targeting a lot more Georgia high schools, a lot of high schools in general, Kaylee, like North Oconee, who we mentioned earlier. They now have 4 former North Oconee Titans that are inside Butts-Mehre, so that's big. But there's also Buford, there's IMG Academy, there's Cartersville, there's Milton. It goes on and on and on, where Georgia now has a bunch of guys. Camden County, the recent safety transfer from East Carolina, he was a teammate of Elias Williams a couple years ago at Camden County down in Kingsland. So what you're doing, if you want to build that brotherhood, if you want a team that feels connected, well, if you bring in guys that are already a little bit connected, you're going to have something good there.
So I want to explore both of the avenues that you just talked about, starting with the guys that were high school teammates. I mean, we can break down some of the specifics. You've got the Buford guys, KJ Bolden, Tyreek Green, Graham Houston, Carrollton, Zakai Helton, Ryan Mosley, the North Oconee guys that we discussed, Dallas Dickerson, Landon Roldan, Kamari Brooks, and Khalil Barnes, and then Ethan Barbour and CJ Wiley from Milton. And, you know, it's easy to look at the connection and the off-the-field strength, but how do you take that and translate that to on the field?
Well, what you do is these guys kind of already know, you know, Georgia gets an edge on recruiting because they know the staff, and the high school staff can say, listen, you can coach him hard just like you can coach so-and-so hard. Or this guy's just as good, as physical or as good a leader as this guy was. So if that guy's working for you, this guy's going to work for you. I bring up a great example here is the one high school program that has the most Georgia Bulldogs is IMG Academy. That's now Ellis Robinson IV Fourth, Gabe Harris, Preston Carey, Zachariah Fort. You've got all these guys that forget Dominic Kelly is one of them as well. So those guys have already been there, done that. Some of them hosted each other on recruiting visits. And you're getting a lot of guys that come from successful programs, Kaylee. These are not 1 or 2 or 3 win high school teams. These are proven winners. Think about that. Cartersville, Buford, North Oconee, IMG Academy, Milton. There are dudes at these high schools. And I think what you've done is you've found a way to not only bring in talented players, but you found in a way to bring in players you already know a little bit about. You know that, they don't mind, physical practices. You kind of predispose. You can kind of figure out coming in the door that, you can coach them hard, or, they know exactly what it's going to be. I think with the Ogboko brothers and the Lucky brothers, they know on the worst day it is to be a Georgia Bulldog what that's like. They know how Kirby is on the mic. They know how Kirby makes decisions internally, and they're good with it. They see that their older son is thriving, and they want their new son to get that same college experience that his older brother's experiencing in Athens. So this is really, to me, a big story about brotherhood, connection in an era where it's very hard to build those things. And it looks like Kirby Smart and the staff is doing it organically.
Yeah, the way I see it when we're looking at the connections of the former high school teammates, I think that says a lot about the talent specifically in the state of Georgia at the high school level. But when it comes to the brothers, I see that more as a Georgia thing, because obviously they know exactly what they're getting into, number one. But also, too, we've seen instances where we know siblings want to go to the same school, or they don't want to be at the same school because they want to create their own legacy. So when we're looking at the Lucky brothers and the Ogboko brothers, I think that says a lot about the state of the football team at Georgia. And we know, growing up with siblings, you just make each other more competitive. You have somebody to always play one-on-one with. But when we're looking at the brother-specific relationships, how do you take what they've cultivated and instill that in the rest of the team?
Yeah, so it's a good model, because you sit there and you go that, these guys are cool and that guy will be cool. I think it's awesome. We flashed that visual of KJ Bolden. KJ Bolden didn't play with Tyreek Green. Tyreek Green showed up the year KJ Bolden was a freshman at Georgia, because he transferred from Kell. But I thought it was really interesting how when Tyreek Green visited, KJ Bolden was always around. He was one of those key peer recruiters, so much to the point where, like, we heard the stories from Tyreek and we heard the stories from KJ at the Sugar Bowl, where, like, when Tyreek had a big game, he sent in his film of all the touchdowns he scored to KJ to look at. And he was like, man, he couldn't wait to tell me all about that. So you've got kind of the pipeline being established where the next one is the current great one is going to try to bring in the next great one. And, Georgia's doing that in a lot of key areas where they're mining a lot of talent out.
Yeah, so here in the next coming months, we're going to try to figure out a lot about who this 2026 Georgia football team is. But one thing that we already do know is the connections and relationships that exist among this team. And that's something to really look forward and be excited about. So we'll continue to follow that. Still to come, we're going to have an exclusive DawgNation interview with a 3-star linebacker target. Then we're also going to talk about a 2028 prospect that's got a lot of people excited. But I want to ask you a quick favor. If you'll just give us a like here on this video. And while you're on our channel, go ahead and subscribe to our DawgNation YouTube page. Ring that bell right next to it. That way you get notified anytime that DawgNation posts content or goes live. Right now, we're still posting videos about Georgia's transfer portal pickups. And here in just a few weeks, we will start putting out profiles on all the guys that could potentially go to the NFL draft for Georgia. So even when the season's over, there's still so much content to consume. So we encourage you to like this video and subscribe to our DawgNation YouTube page. So we'll have our top targets later on, but I want to take a deep dive into someone that we are going to see on that list. That's going to be the 3-star linebacker Joakim Gouda out of Douglasville, attends South Paulding High School. He dominated for them this year with 100 total tackles. Clearly this is someone that Glenn Schumann was impressed by. So, when we're looking at a 3-star specifically, why should Georgia fans be excited about Georgia giving him an offer?
First of all, Kaylee, that 3-star ranking is he's a 4-star, high 4-star walking. That's a bunch of ancient history for a while now. Georgia offers him, right, Kaylee? And then following suit right after the Georgia offer was Tennessee and Texas. He got Texas just this week as well. Joakim Gouda, let me tell you about him. I saw him I saw his film and I heard the noise about him, right? I saw his film and I'm like, I don't care about any of that 3-star stuff. That is a physical football player that loves, and I mean this in the most heartwarming ways possible, he loves to inflict pain on people. And that's one of those guys that's a naturally violent football player. Kaylee, Georgia's hosting a big junior day this weekend. Joakim Gouda will be there. There's a lot of stuff to like about this football player. But to me, I want you guys to pay very close attention to what he says in our DawgNation conversation, because it's going to take it back to old school days about when a Georgia offer really meant something.
Yeah, I don't see any point in wasting more time. This is Joakim Gouda on his reaction to getting an offer from Georgia.
Yeah, when I first got the offer, Coach Shu called me. He was talking about what he likes about my game and the upcoming things they have and how they like me to be up there. And then he gave me the offer. It felt like a surreal moment, being a Georgia kid and the University of Georgia offering you. So, it definitely means a lot. And yeah, when I ended the call, posted it, and your phone was blowing. I barely could sleep. The phones just kept blowing. Even when I woke up, phone kept blowing. So that's really what it meant.
What was going through your mind while you couldn't sleep, man?
What was going through my mind? I couldn't sleep. Really, all the notifications. I even tried muting my phone. It just kept buzzing, bzz, bzz, bzz. And what was going through my mind? I'm like, it just felt surreal. And I was just like, dang, I was just thanking God and all.
For you, what do you think your film says about the way you try to play this game?
Definitely what my film says. It was I play hard, play aggressive, and when I hit you, you're gonna feel it. Really aggressive, true linebacker. I'm not just here to take you to the ground. I'm trying to take you out the game. That's really what my film would say about me.
What motivates you, man? Where do you get all this desire to inflict pain on people?
What motivates me is definitely my family, my older brothers, and my sister, and my parents. They believe in me, and I don't like letting people down. It's just kind of I feel like it's kind of rude in a sense. So I just feel like I gotta give it all I got, and just give it all I got.
What does Georgia, I guess, in their history at linebacker, what does that speak to you about?
Well, I haven't really dwindled down all my schools yet. I'm hearing every school out, and definitely Georgia is definitely a big program. A program that competes for championships dang near every year. You should definitely consider it. If you don't, it's pretty idiotic. But the history of linebackers is definitely it's historic. It's great. They got too many that I can sit here and go on for days about the linebackers they put in the league and the linebackers they develop. So and knowing that I got the chance to be one of them is definitely something special to me. So that's really what the history of linebackers that have mean to me.
Why did they offer you? When he told you what jumped out on the film for you, why did they offer you?
He said my frame as a high school linebacker, the way I can move with it is definitely something that he takes notice in, and then the way I strike, and then my physicality at the point of attack, and that's really what he says. He said then he offered me.
What's your favorite play on your tape? If all your offers went down to 0 and you had to get them all back and you had to show just a couple plays, what would be the first play you showed people?
First play, it is not really my best play, but it's definitely the one that it was a game against Alatoona. It's overtime. They score on us, and everyone down. Now they got to do PAT. Usually everyone just give up, but I just felt like it was in me, so I rushed and I blocked the PAT, and we ended up winning the game. So that's definitely my favorite play because it's so much meaning behind it. It's just, what was it, second game of the season? Mm-hmm. Second game of the season, we won that game. Everyone was happy. Yeah, that was my favorite play.
So you said that you watched a lot of tape on him, and there's been so many great linebackers that have come through Georgia. Does he remind you of any other Georgia linebacker we've seen?
I mean, he's physical, Kaylee, and it's to the point where he's already 6'2", 230, 225, and that's a lot bigger than a lot of the linebackers Georgia has taken recently. He looks to me like maybe a better build of a guy that's kind of not the type of linebacker Georgia chases anymore, like a bigger, like Tresman Marshall, or perhaps maybe a bigger Raylan Wilson, because one of the things he is, Kaylee, is he is a tone setter. And this is the main thing I want to take away from it. And this is a soapbox moment for everybody that's sitting there and they're just kind of fed up with the transactional nature of college football. And, this takes it to the base level, to the most purest thing is still an offer, Kaylee. And when this young man got the Georgia offer, it was a whoa moment in his life. So much to the point, he told me he couldn't sleep that night because his mind was racing about the possibilities of that's where Jalen Walker played. That's where Roquan Smith played. That's where Nakobe Dean played. And he was excited about his future. And everybody, rightfully so, that thinks this is all a business now. This is all NFL light. This is a young man, and everything he said right there screamed to me that put this guy in front of the DawgNation folks and let them see him for himself, because to him, a Georgia offer still means a very, very great deal.
Yeah, I mean, you could just tell that by the video, the excitement that was there. I know it's still pretty early in the cycle, but when could we expect him to make that decision?
Sounds like Georgia is right up there, very high, Kaylee. I think he wants to make his decision in the middle of the recruiting season, which would be May, June, July. He wants to do it before his senior year. He's got a lot of schools to see. Kaylee, I think Georgia fans should be very empowered to know, you watch his film, it just jumps off the frame. There's some clips in there, especially early in his tape, where he is sending bodies flying when he makes contact, and you don't really see that anymore. But Kaylee, it sounds to me he got the offer from Georgia and immediately early last week, scheduled himself for the junior day visit in Athens. That is the right type of reaction that Georgia still wants to see from an in-state target that not a lot of people know about, but Georgia knows about, and they're feeling the love.
Well, as you mentioned, he will be visiting Athens this weekend. So when we get to our top targets here in just a second, we will discuss some of the other guys that will be visiting Athens this weekend. Before we do that, we still have Sentell's mail, but I just want to remind you guys that every Thursday night, 7 o'clock, it's me and Connor Riley for DawgNation at Large. Since we're finally getting towards the end of the portal window, we're going to discuss what the transfer portal movements from Georgia say about the state of the 2026 team. Then also we're going to poke a little bit of fun at the national championship, some predictions, some prop bets, and of course our good friend Cody Chaffins will join us as well. So we hope you'll be there tomorrow night for DawgNation at Large at 7 o'clock. I'm really excited. It's been a while since we've done this, but we're really trying to incorporate it more into 2026. So this is Sentell's mail. It wouldn't be Sentell's mail if it did not have Stetson Bennett in it. There's just no other way.
First of all, Cody Chaffins and the things he creates for all of our shows, our furniture around our segments, just great. Cody's the gift that never that
keeps on giving.
Keeps on giving.
Here we go.
You got mailman socks. Look at the attention to detail he had right there. I'm a big fan of whenever we have a segment intro like that one.
And I'm really excited for the question specifically because someone reached out to you directly about a 2028 prospect. In short, it said, is Georgia recruiting 2028 wide receiver Bryson Wright out of Jacksonville, Florida? Now, he's not just any 2028 prospect. He's a 5-star wide receiver who, according to the 247 composite, is the number 1 prospect in the class of 2028. And you may have seen him before without realizing that you've seen him before, because he went viral over the summer for this one-handed catch. Oh my goodness, it caught the attention of so many people. You see Patrick Mahomes there at the bottom of your screen. Also the entire Jacksonville Jaguars team. And right now it looks like his front runners are Florida, Miami, and Ohio State. I mean, where does Georgia fit into all of this?
Well, first of all, Kaylee, goodness. People are going to go, bruh, Jeff, quit lying to us. This guy, folks, this is 6'4" and 215 pounds over the summer. And some of the NFL players that saw this clip, they're like, I don't even know if I could make that catch. Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence weighed in. Patrick Mahomes weighed in. I think OBJ tracked him down. Number 1 player in the country, Kaylee, 6'4", 215. This was over the summer. And I had to be that guy. I had to be like, okay, if he did this against an elite kind of all-star type 7-on-7 format, I wonder what he did this fall. Kaylee, he was just okay. What I mean okay is he had 48 catches, like 900 yards and 10 touchdowns. But this is a guy, number 1 player in the country. Everybody's going to want him. Georgia has offered him. Georgia's going to try and make him a priority. Kaylee, but we know the deal. This type of recruit, number one receiver in the country who has this next level ability. First of all, I'd tell the young man to go get that check. Go one-hand that check and reclassify to 2027. Just get there, get to the pay window a little bit quicker. You know, Miami, obviously Florida, I'm sure Ohio State. They should be his leaders right now. Georgia would love to be one of his leaders, but that's a guy right there who has – Kaylee, he could go to college football in a year and he could dominate because that type of frame, that type of ability is very rare. Shout out to Becky Rutledge for sending us that question. Guys, you can hit us up anywhere. Like Deion Sanders says, I ain't hard to find. You can send me a message and we'll spotlight one of your questions during our Sentell Mails segment during the offseason.
We spent a lot of time earlier talking about connections, and I can't help but wonder if there's a potential connection between him and the 2028 quarterback commit, Jaden Wade, because even though they don't go to the same school, they're both from the state of Florida, and they do 7-on-7 all summer, maybe even competing against each other or with each other. So I can't help but wonder if maybe Jaden Wade's already kind of getting ahead of this and saying, you know what, come be my target. That's
probably the best pitch Georgia can create. They can say, hey, we have the number one quarterback in your class. Won't you want to come play with that dude? Kaylee, the other thing to think about is he's from Jacksonville, and Georgia owns Gator City of late. You know, the way they've turned that into a non-rivalry with those mighty Gators and everything else like that. The other thing that's an interesting little wrinkle, Kaylee, and I'm gonna ask you a question about the sniff test here. Now, he goes to Mandarin High School in Jacksonville, Florida. Former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck came out of Mandarin. Kaylee, do you think that is a plus, minus, or neutral thought there for Georgia?
If I've said it once, I'll say it again. As Don Draper once said, I don't think about you at all.
There you go. But again, super talent. I love the fact that we can show this film because you guys are probably going to be like, Jeff, Kaylee, can you show me highlights of receivers that Georgia has committed right now? This rising seniors that look like that? Because it is one of those. He's already got the easy, lazy comparisons of this is a Jeremiah Smith type prospect.
Well, as Jeff said, we're going to try to incorporate this more into 2026. So get your questions to us no matter how you do it, because we're going to start doing this a little bit more. But one thing that you can always count on us to do in our Before the Hedges show is a class breakdown. We have moved on to 2027. So we're going to start with the offensive side of the ball that's got 4 commits. Running back Noah Parker, you've got 2 wide receivers, the highest rated signing on offense, that's the offensive tackle Kelsey Adams. But quarterback is interesting in this class because you've got Ryan Puglisi, Ryan Montgomery currently at Georgia. Then you've got Jaden Wade behind them. What do you expect Georgia to do for a 2027 quarterback after not having signed one in 2026?
So Georgia is offering. They're in the offering business right now, Kaylee. They just offered Blake Roscoff. He's a quarterback out of Arizona. And one of the things Blake told me is really interested in Georgia. A lot of the SECs are trying for him because he's 6'5", put up a lot of big stats. But, one of the things that the reasons why Georgia offered him, Blake told me, is hey, I look like their current quarterbacks that they have. Now, he's a little bit bigger, Kaylee, 6'5". If I'm being honest, honesty compels me to admit that I think the way Georgia's succession at the quarterback position for that room is set up pretty well right now. You get one more year of Gunner. You get to figure out who's the number 2 in spring ball between Puglisi and Ryan Montgomery. And then that guy should likely take over for 2027. And then that's the type of, and you got Jaden Wade coming in 2028. I think that's the way Georgia should do it. Now, if they go after an alpha in this class in 2027, I think that's kind of going to muddy the waters a little bit. And Kaylee, let's face it, we could have a show next week that says the 5-star this or that just committed to Georgia in the class of 2027. And people will go, fool me once, fool me twice. We'll believe it in December.
I'm glad that you bring that up because when we look at the defense, just one commit. That's the 5-star cornerback, Dante Wright, who's on the other side of the country in California. So how does Georgia continue to maintain a close relationship with him? Because we've seen it in the past before where Georgia will have a California commit and then all those schools will go out and poach them because they just have the geographical advantage. So how does Georgia maintain that relationship with Dante?
Well, one of the things he did, there's a good relationship with Coach Dante Williams as well. It goes back a ways, but he looked past all those other schools because he wants to play in the SEC. Now, he's still getting hawked by the USCs, the Oregons of the world. Like
the usual suspects.
Everybody is trying for him, and right now he's the lone 5-star in this class. Kaylee, it makes it really hard. Like lots of times you want to see at the early stages, especially at a junior day, like the big junior day this weekend. Who are the class leaders? Who are the guys that are going to lead this class and start urging their peers to come join them? And right now you've got Wright, who's across the country. You've got 2 wide receivers that are across the country. You've basically got Noah Parker and Kelsey Adams to do the job right now. And Georgia would like to change that as soon as possible.
So we're not going to spend too much time on the snapshot because there have been no changes at the moment. Still ranked 8th nationally for 2027. Instead, we'll go ahead and move on to our top targets. We've got 15 to show you. New name on the list this week. Talk to me about Marvin and then anybody else on this list who's going to be in Athens this weekend.
First of all, Kaylee, let's have our first Before the Hedges first here. Shout out to Dusseldorf, Germany. That's where Marvin and Gets Up is from. Now, he is in Oakdale, Connecticut at a boarding school. 3-star, Kaylee. Try these measurables on for size. 6'7", 275-ish pounds. He's an edge, former soccer player, former basketball player. He has got NFL size already, and this story gets even better for Georgia fans to listen to. J.J. Hane and Valden Song, those guys are from the same PPI prospect group where they find international players and they bring them over to play college football in America. Marvin has told me that J.J. Hane, a fellow native of Germany, by the way, Kaylee, I just roll my eyes when I'm talking about this, German players recruiting other German players to come to the University of Georgia. I blow a fuse as I kind of say those words because I'm like, I'm sure am I making sense here, but that's reality. J.J. has basically said he's going to not let anybody get him aside from the University of Georgia. Marvin loves the Dogs. Marvin came and saw the Dogs for the Texas game. Well, that was a good game to come by and catch some feels as well. So I think Georgia's in a really good spot there right now.
It all goes back to relationships and connections. Don't sleep on the European Brotherhood at Georgia because it's really strong right now. We'll move on to 5 through 10. 4 state of Georgia guys on this list. Anybody visiting this weekend? Yeah,
I would expect to see at least probably Justin Weeks, maybe Cole Crawford as well. Gouda, we've already profiled him in our show. Go back and watch that if you're just joining us right now. Those guys are all expected in town for Junior Day. Seth Tillman currently has Georgia as his leader. Nigel's going to come back off that knee injury that ended his junior year at Gainesville really early as well. Justin Weeks, Pace Academy. Guys, love to hear about us profiling, talking about Pace Academy potential dogs there because there's a pretty strong historical pipeline right now. It's a defensive lineman, and right now Georgia and Ohio State are the top of his list.
All right, so now we're going to move on to the top 5. I want to ask if there's any updates on Joshua Samapel because I feel like it's been a pretty rocky road is not the right word, but it feels like when we're getting close to a decision from him, we get a little bit further away. So any updates on Joshua Samapel's journey to making a decision?
Yeah, the dangling carrot keeps moving a little bit in this recruitment. And like we reported recently, Kaylee, Miami's in this thing now for Joshua Samapel. We know what that means. They might even throw Disney World at him. That's how serious Miami gets when it comes to offensive line targets. Samapel is expected to be in Athens this weekend as well. You've got some other targets there. I think, Kaylee, Chance Gilbert is a guy Georgia absolutely has to focus on and prioritize. He's the number 3 safety in the country, and every time I've spoken to him, it sounds like his recruitment will not even centered around the financial and transactional. He's a very loyal kid. He's looking for a spiritual home above all else. I mean, the rest of this list, Brock Williams, he was going to make his decision sometime around the holidays. He backed that off as well. I think it's smart, Kaylee, because what I'm noticing here is all these 2027s are committing, and I'm like, hey, man, have you really talked numbers with your school yet? And they're like, no. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, then are you really committed? Like, this hasn't even really started yet. You're like in the exhibition season of your recruitment. But, that's one of the things Joshua Samapel told me. He's like, he doesn't know how all these people are making these commitments and feeling so good about him when they don't even know the whole sales pitch yet.
And he's one of the guys that will be visiting too.
Yep.
So Georgia's got another shot this weekend. That's going to be it for today. As always, want to thank you guys for joining us. Check out DawgNation Daily tomorrow morning, DawgNation at Large tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. With that, I am Kaylee Mansell with DawgNation Recruiting Insider Jeff Sentell. This is Before the Hedges. We'll see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
I'm a bulldog, so Georgia who I'm picking.